She still remembers the sound of that door. The way it closed behind him. Not loud, not violent. Just quiet enough to feel like something inside her had been erased. She stood there frozen. 3 small children behind her. One holding her dress. One crying. One too young to even understand. And him. The man who once promised forever. Did not turn around. Not once. He did not look at her. Did not look at the children. Did not hesitate. He just walked away. Like they were nothing. Like 10 years of love meant nothing. Like the nights she stayed awake beside him meant nothing. Like the life they built together was just something he could leave behind. And in that moment, she realized something. She was alone. Not the kind of alone that comes with silence, but the kind that screams inside your chest. The kind that makes your legs weak. The kind that makes you question how you will survive the next hour. The youngest child started crying louder, pulling at her clothes, asking for food. She had nothing. No money. No plan. No one coming to save her. Just 3 children. And a heart that was breaking but had no time to break. Because survival does not wait for grief. That night, there was no dinner. She told the children stories instead. Soft, gentle lies about tomorrow being better. About daddy coming back. About everything being okay. But when they finally fell asleep, she sat in the dark. And for the first time, she let the tears fall. Not quietly. Not softly. But like a storm that had been waiting. She cried for the life she lost. For the man she thought she knew. For the future that disappeared in a single moment. But mostly, she cried because she did not know how she was going to feed her children in the morning. The next day came too fast. Morning light filled the room like nothing had changed. Like the world had not just fallen apart. But reality does not care about pain. The children woke up hungry. Again. She searched every corner of the house. Every drawer. Every forgotten place. And found almost nothing. A little bread. Some water. She divided it carefully, pretending it was enough. Pretending she was not breaking inside. That day she made a decision. She would not beg. She would not break. She would not wait for him. If he could walk away, then she could stand up. Not because she was strong, but because she had no other choice. Days turned into weeks. She took any work she could find. Cleaning houses. Washing clothes. Working long hours for little money. Her hands became rough. Her body tired. Her eyes heavy. But she never stopped. Because every night, 3 children looked at her. Like she was their whole world. And she refused to let that world collapse. People talked. They always do. They whispered about her. About how her husband left. About how she was struggling. Some pitied her. Some judged her. But none of them understood. None of them saw the nights she stayed awake. Counting every coin. Trying to figure out how to make it last. None of them felt the fear. The constant fear. That one day she would not be able to provide. But slowly, something began to change. Not outside. Inside. The woman who once waited. Who once depended. Who once believed in someone else to carry her. Was disappearing. And in her place, something new was being born. Something stronger. Something quieter. Something unbreakable. She stopped looking at the door. Stopped hoping he would come back. Stopped asking why. Because she realized the answer did not matter. What mattered was what she would become without him. Years passed. The children grew. They stopped asking about their father. Stopped waiting. They saw their mother. Working. Fighting. Never giving up. And slowly, they began to understand. She was not just their mother. She was everything. There were days she almost gave up. Days when the bills piled up. When exhaustion took over. When the weight felt too heavy. But every time, she remembered that night. The door closing. And something inside her would rise again. Not anger. Not pain. But determination. She would never go back to that moment. Never be that helpless again. And without realizing it, she was building something. Not just survival. Something bigger. Something powerful. Something he would never understand. Because he walked away. And she stayed. And staying changed everything. Time did not heal her. It reshaped her. The woman who once waited for love now woke up every morning with a different purpose. Not to be saved, but to build. Her hands still worked the same long hours. But her mind had changed. She was no longer just surviving. She was learning, watching, understanding, growing. Every house she cleaned, every person she worked for, every small opportunity, she paid attention. She noticed how people lived, how they spoke, how they managed money, how they built stability. And slowly, very slowly, an idea started forming. She did not want to work like this forever. She wanted more. Not for herself, but for her children. She wanted a life where they would never feel what she felt that night. The fear, the hunger, the abandonment. So she started small, saving whatever she could. A few dollars here, a few dollars there. It was not much, but it was hers, and that mattered. There were nights she skipped meals, just to save a little more. Nights she told her children she was not hungry, just so they could eat fully. And every sacrifice was building something unseen, something growing beneath the surface. People still doubted her. They always had. They said she should remarry, said she needed a man, said she could not do it alone. But she stopped listening, because she had already lived the worst version of depending on someone. And she survived it. So what else was there to fear? Years passed again. And one day, an opportunity came. Not big, not perfect, but enough. One of the houses she worked at was being sold. The owner mentioned it casually, said they needed someone reliable to help manage cleaning for multiple properties. It was small work, but steady, and something inside her said, "This is it." She took the chance, even though she was scared, even though she did not know how. She said yes. The first few months were hard, harder than anything before. More responsibility, more pressure, more risk, but also more control. For the first time, she was not just working. She was building something of her own. She hired help. Just one person at first, then two, then more. She treated them with respect, the kind she never received. And people noticed. Clients trusted her. Workers stayed loyal. Because she was not just running a business. She was creating something real, something honest. And slowly, her life began to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. The small apartment turned into a better place, then a bigger one. Her children had proper meals, proper clothes, proper education. They smiled more. They worried less. And every time she saw that, she knew. Every sleepless night, every tear, every sacrifice was worth it. But success does not erase the past. It just changes how you carry it. There were still moments, quiet moments, when she would sit alone and remember. Not him, but that version of herself. The woman who stood at the door. Broken, lost, abandoned. And she would barely recognize her. Because now, she was someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who did not wait. Someone who built her own future. Her children grew into young adults, each one carrying a piece of her strength. They respected her, admired her, protected her, not because she asked, but because they saw everything she had done. She never told them the full story, never showed them all the pain, but they felt it, in the way she worked, in the way she loved, in the way she never gave up. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. Her business expanded. Bigger clients, more properties, more recognition. People began to talk about her, not as the woman who was abandoned, but as the woman who built everything from nothing. And for the first time, she allowed herself to feel proud. Not loud, not arrogant, just quiet pride. The kind that comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. But life has a way of circling back, of bringing things full circle, when you least expect it. And on a day that felt completely normal, A day like any other. The past came knocking. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to stop her heart for a moment. A familiar presence. A shadow from a life she had buried. Standing at the edge of everything she had built. Older. Weaker. Changed. But still recognizable. And in that moment, 10 years disappeared. Not in her life, but in his. Because the man who once walked away was no longer walking. He was standing still, with nothing left. And for the first time, he was the one who did not know what to do. And she, the woman he once left behind, was no longer waiting at the door. This time, she was the one holding it. For a moment, time stood still. The air felt heavier, like the past and present had collided in one silent breath. He stood there, not as the man she once knew, not as the man who walked away with pride, but as someone worn down by life, someone who had lost more than he ever imagined. His clothes were simple, his posture weak, his eyes no longer carried confidence, only regret, and something else, something deeper, fear. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years, she felt nothing, no anger, no love, no longing, just stillness, the kind that comes when a wound has fully healed. He tried to speak, but the words did not come easily. His voice trembled, like it had forgotten how to ask, how to explain, how to face what he had done. He lowered his eyes, because looking at her was harder than walking away had ever been. And finally, he spoke, not loudly, not proudly, but broken. He said he was sorry, said he made mistakes, said he lost everything, said life had not been kind to him. He said the world he chose over his family had turned its back on him. The people he trusted left. The life he chased collapsed. And now, he had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. His voice cracked as he said the words he never thought he would say. He asked for help, not as a husband, not as a man with authority, but as someone who had nothing left, begging. And in that moment, everything became clear. This was not the same man. This was the result of his choices. Standing right in front of her, she listened, quietly, without interruption, without emotion, because she had already lived her pain. She had already faced her worst days, alone, and survived. When he finished, silence filled the space between them. Heavy, uncomfortable, real. He waited, hoping, fearing, uncertain, because now, the power had shifted. Completely. She took a slow breath, not because she was nervous, but because she understood the weight of this moment. 10 years ago, she stood at the same door, with nothing, while he walked away. Today, he stood at this door, with nothing, while she held everything. And life had brought them back, not for revenge, but for truth. She stepped forward, just enough for him to feel her presence. Strong, steady, unshaken. And when she spoke, her voice was calm, not cold, not angry, just certain. She told him. She forgave him. Not for him, but for herself. Because she refused to carry his mistakes any longer. She told him. The pain he caused did not break her. It built her. The nights he left her crying taught her how to stand. The struggles he never saw made her stronger. The life he abandoned became the life she created. On her own. He looked up, surprised, confused, maybe even hopeful. But she was not finished. She told him, forgiveness does not mean access. It does not mean returning. It does not mean rebuilding what he destroyed. Some doors, once closed, remain closed. Because not everything deserves a second chance. Some things only deserve a lesson. His face changed, the weight of her words sinking in. Slowly, painfully, he realized this was not the ending he imagined. He was not coming back. He was not being welcomed. He was being released from a life he no longer belonged to. She reached into her bag and handed him something. Not money, not comfort, but a small card. Information. A place where he could find help. A chance to rebuild. On his own. The same way she did. Because she was not cruel. But she was no longer responsible. He took it. His hands shaking. Not from weakness, but from understanding. This was all he would get. A chance. Not a return. Tears filled his eyes. But he did not argue. Because deep down, he knew this was more than he deserved. He stepped back. Slowly. Hesitating. As if hoping she would change her mind. But she did not. She stood there. Strong. Peaceful. Complete. Not needing anything from him. Not wanting anything from him. Just done. And as he turned and walked away, just like he once did, the difference was clear. 10 years ago, he walked away with everything, leaving her with nothing. Today, he walked away with nothing, while she stood with everything. And this time, she did not cry. She did not break. She did not watch him disappear. Instead, she closed the door. Softly. Not with pain, but with peace. Because her story was never about him. It was about who she became after he left. And that was something no one could ever take away. The door was closed. But the story was not. Because some endings do not end in silence. They echo in the hearts of those who lived through them. Days passed, but something had shifted. Not in her strength, not in her peace, but in the space around her. Her children noticed it first. The quiet difference in her eyes. The way she seemed lighter, like a chapter she never spoke about, had finally been put to rest. She did not tell them everything, but they understood. Because they had lived the consequences. Even if they never saw the beginning. One evening, they sat together, laughing, talking, sharing stories. Something simple, something real. And in that moment, she realized this was everything she fought for. Not revenge, not success, not proving anything to anyone. But this, a home filled with peace, a family built on strength, a life no longer controlled by the past, but far away, in a place much quieter. He sat alone, holding that small card, the one she gave him. He looked at it over and over, not because it was just help, but because it was something he never gave her. A chance. And for the first time in his life, he began to understand what it truly meant to lose something real. Not money, not status, but people. He remembered her. Not the woman at the door, but the one he left behind. The one who looked at him with love, with trust, with belief. And he wondered how someone could walk away from that. How he could. But regret does not change the past. It only teaches too late. Days turned into weeks, and something unexpected happened. He used the card, not out of pride, but because he had none left. He started again. Slow, difficult, humbling, doing small work, learning to survive, the way she once did. And every step, every struggle, brought him closer to a truth he had avoided his entire life. Nothing valuable comes easy, and everything he lost was something he never earned properly. Back in her world, life continued to grow. Her business expanded further. Her name carried respect. But what mattered most was not what people saw. It was what she felt. Peace. Real peace. Not the kind that depends on someone staying, but the kind that comes from knowing, even if everything falls apart, she will stand again. One afternoon, months later, she received a message. Not dramatic, not emotional, just simple. It was from him. He did not ask to come back, did not beg, did not make excuses. He just said, "Thank you," for not turning him away completely, for showing him a different way, for giving him something he never gave her. Understanding. She read it. Once, then again, and for a moment, she smiled. Not because of him, but because of what it meant. The story had changed. Not into love again, Not into reunion, but into something rare. Closure. She did not reply, because not every message needs an answer. Some are just meant to be felt and released. Time moved forward, as it always does. Her children built their own lives, their own dreams, carrying her strength with them. And she, the woman who once stood broken at a door, became something more than just a survivor. She became proof that being left does not mean being lost. That pain can become power. That endings can become beginnings. And somewhere in the world, a man who once had everything now understood the value of what he lost. But this time, he was not chasing it. He was learning from it. And that was the only redemption he would ever have. As for her, she no longer looked back, because her life was no longer behind her. It was fully, beautifully, in front of her. And for the first time, since that door closed years ago, she was not just surviving. She was living, completely, freely, and on her own terms. Years passed, not slowly, not heavily, but peacefully. The kind of time that does not need to be survived, only lived. Her home was no longer just a place of safety. It had become a place of warmth, of memories, of laughter, of quiet evenings that once felt impossible. The children, no longer children, stood tall in their own lives, each one carrying a different dream, but the same foundation, strength. They often spoke about her, not in front of her, but in the way people speak about someone who changed everything. They remembered the small things, the nights she pretended to be full, so they could eat, the mornings she woke up tired, but still smiled, the way she never let them feel the full weight of the storm. And now, they understood what it cost her. One day, they gathered, not for a problem, not for a struggle, but for a celebration. Something simple, something meaningful. They had bought her a house, not just any house, but one she once stopped in front of years ago, when life was still hard, when dreams felt far, when she told herself, maybe one day, but never believed it fully. And now, that day had come. They handed her the keys, with smiles, with pride, with love that words could not hold. For a moment, she could not move. Her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything she had lived through. She looked at them, really looked at them, and saw, not the children she once protected, but the people she had raised. Strong, kind, unbreakable, just like she had become. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not the same tears. Not the ones from that night. Not the ones of pain or fear. These were different. These were full of everything she had built, everything she had survived, everything she had given. She stepped inside the house, slowly, taking it in, every corner, every detail. And then, she stopped, because something felt familiar. Not the place, but the feeling. It was the same feeling she had years ago, standing at a door. But this time, it was not loss. It was arrival. She had made it, not because someone helped her, not because life was easy, but because she refused to give up. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, she stood alone for a moment, looking out, thinking, not about the pain, not about the struggle, but about the journey, and how every broken piece had led her here. Her phone buzzed. A message. Again. From him. But this time, it was different. No need. No request. No past trying to return. Just a simple update. He had found steady work. He was doing better. He was trying. Really trying. And at the end, one line. You were right. She read it, and gently put the phone down. Because some victories do not need to be shared. They are felt quietly, deep inside. She did not hate him. She did not miss him. She simply moved beyond him. Because her story was never about being chosen. It was about choosing herself. And in doing that, she changed everything. The night grew calm. The house filled with soft voices. laughter, life. And she stood there, no longer the woman who was left behind, but the woman who created her own future. A future where she was enough, where she was strong, where she was free. And somewhere deep inside, that old memory, that door closing, finally lost its power, because it was no longer the moment that defined her. This was standing in a home built by love, surrounded by the life she refused to lose. And in that quiet moment, she smiled, not for anyone else, but for herself, because she knew, no matter what life had taken, she had given herself something greater, a life on her own terms. There are stories that begin with love and end with loss, and then there are stories, like hers, that begin with loss and end with something far greater. For a long time, she thought that night was the end of her life, the moment everything was taken, the moment she was left behind. But she was wrong. That night was not an ending. It was a beginning, not a gentle one, not a kind one, but a powerful one. Because sometimes, life does not ask if you are ready. It simply changes everything and leaves you to decide whether you will break or become. She became, not instantly, not easily, but step by step, through pain, through sacrifice, through days that felt impossible. She became the woman her past could not destroy. And the truth is, he did come back, just like she once imagined, but not in the way she hoped, and not for the reasons she dreamed. He came back, not to complete her, but to witness what she became without him. And that was the real story. Not his regret, not his fall, but her rise. Because at the end of everything, the most powerful thing she ever did was not surviving. It was choosing herself when no one else did. And maybe, somewhere out there, someone is standing at their own door, watching something fall apart, feeling like everything is over, feeling like they have been left with nothing. But this story is for them, to remind them that nothing is not the end. Sometimes, it is the place where everything begins. And one day, they will stand, just like she did. Not broken, not waiting, but whole, strong, and finally,